Welcome back, Soulful Society, to Soulful of Wellness.
The multi-generational podcast brought to you by two functional imperfectionists
And certified coaches.
who deliver tips to live your most authentic and balanced life.
Today, we're covering something that is all too close to both Kit and my heart, worrying. We're going to go over the not so obvious signs that you're experiencing anxiety and, of course, healthy tools to combat that sneaky anxiety so you can self-soothe to feel powerful, happy, and confident.
Welcome back.
Happy November. If you haven't already, please hit that plus sign in the corner to quote unquote follow us, leave us a rating and review, or tell a friend about Soulful of Wellness.
We're talking about something that is sort of an ongoing, sometimes it's more prevalent, sometimes less so, but to some degree, always relevant to my life, anxiety.
Today, we're taking a new approach to it and talking about the sneaky ways that you are experiencing anxiety, how to combat that to feel more confident in your decision making, and also how to feel more in power and more in control of your life.
Yeah, more in control of your own damn life.
So this episode came about, Kit and I were chatting. I have a trip coming up next weekend, and I had been noticing there wasn't any plans scheduled yet. I'm staying with a friend. We haven't gotten a hold of each other, so I haven't learned what the plans are, and I wanted to be helpful. And as I was thinking through this and chatting about it with JC, he was like, "Okay, why don't we just go with the flow? This isn't a vacation. It's a pretty quick trip. We have one purpose to meet our wedding photographer, which we're really excited about. But other than that, what if we just kind of flowed with it?" And so Kit and I got to chatting about this idea of over planning, which is our first sneaky sign of anxiety. When you're over planning is basically when you're overthinking something and trying to control the outcome too much to the point where your mind is racing and you're feeling worried.
JC's idea is a beautiful idea. If only it were that easy. If he could just say, let's just flow with it. And you're like, yeah, done. But as much as we both acknowledge it is a lovely, desirable way to approach this, your brain wasn't letting that happen. Your brain was going, yeah, flowing with it. But let's see, what can I do? What can I control in the absence of these plans? I know I can control my own packing. There's something I can control.
Oh, yeah.
Then hours of your life went into packing where you're perseverating on this outfit or this outfit, and you're trying them on, and you're texting friends with photos and getting input and weighing in, and we're voting. And oh my goodness, that's a whole lot of energy around what you're bringing on a 3-day trip.
Yes. So that is sneaky anxiety right
is.
there. Over planning. And I was overthinking. And you know what's the most helpful thing in the world sometimes? When you have a friend that just looks at you and says, "You're overthinking."
Yeah.
God, it's such a relief to hear. Oh, thank you. I'm like, all right, cool. So a way to combat this sneaky form of anxiety and of worry is to, first of all, be aware, right? Awareness is the first step. As long as we can be aware, I went up to JC and said, "You know what? I think I'm kind of over worrying about this, and I can feel it in my bones, in my body, and I don't want to be feeling this feeling anymore." So something that my dad has brought up as a tip is he feels as though action can really mitigate anxiety. And so our tip and our tool in this is making a decision. So easier said than done, right? Of course, I'm texting everyone, trying to figure out what to wear, what to do, whatever. But once you are able to make a small decision for yourself, it starts to build inner confidence, which starts to build more self-trust and sort of dissolves this perfectionistic tendency, which is another sneaky form of anxiety, is perfectionism.
That's another point where recognizing that spending hours trying to plan which outfits are going to make it into the bag on a 3-day trip really is anxiety. And when you can say, oh, wait, hold on, I know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
This is me trying to handle uncertainty in a way that ultimately is not in any way productive and isn't going to cure the root of the problem. I still don't know what we're going to be doing when we get there. So it's really just a lot of wasted angst and effort and time. So I'm going to cut myself off because I now have the awareness that these decisions really don't make much of a difference. I'm going to
Mm.
set a timer, give myself 10 minutes, put something in the bag, boom, done. That's what's coming on the trip. Moving on.
Hmm. And he had said to me, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. And that made me recognize my inner gremlin, as we've talked about in previous episodes. The inner gremlin is another way to call your inner critic, was my little inner gremlin, Mr. Perfectionism, sitting on my shoulder, putting all this pressure on myself. You got to look this way, or you need plans to have fun. And it's really just sneaky anxiety. So, awareness and making a decision can build confidence and help mitigate that anxiety.
It helps you reclaim control in the little area that is within your control.
I love that you point that out, Kit, because anxiety is a state of being, right? When we don't want to
Mm-hmm.
feel something or discomfort. It also directly has to do with control.
Yes, let's get into that. All right. Anxiety and me. I honestly think of them as inextricably linked. When I think of anxiety, I think I have anxiety. I don't say I am anxiety, but I do think anxiety is me. I think of it as residing in my DNA at a cellular level. And lately, I've been making an attempt to extricate the two,
Mm,
to be aware that it is a factor in my life, but that it
hmm.
isn't me and I am not it. We overlap, but we aren't each other. And I'm finding it helpful to pry us
Hmm.
apart. As I'm able to personify anxiety as
Hmm.
something outside of me, it's helping me not be so attached to it and not so integrated with it. And that alone is helpful in not letting it have the power over me and my choices and my actions and my reactions and my energy as it has in the past.
I love that you're reclaiming control by you're taking your power
Yeah.
back. And I love this. That ties in perfectly to this idea of holding on versus letting go,
Yes.
because you were saying you identified as this and that
Hmm.
sort of took over your personality. But I have also had inner conflict with that for a while. It felt empowering to be like, I have anxiety, this is me, whatever. And then my brother and I were sort of talking about it within our family. We're like, this has crossed the line. There's too much emphasis on this. It felt like some people were just putting so much power into like, I have anxiety, I have anxiety. And it's really just feeding the beast and making it way worse.
Right. Giving too much power to it, giving too much energy to it, to the point where if you said top 10 things about you, who are you? What are you? Have you ever done this? You say, what comes up? I am a daughter. I am a sister. They, at one point in my life, would have made my top 10. Today, I am still a daughter and I am still a sister, but they wouldn't make my top 10. I got to the point where anxiety would have made my top 10.
Oh, that makes me
It
feel
was
sad too,
right.
because that sounds like you felt like it was such a big part of your personality and your
Yeah.
being. And it's not, it has nothing to do. Think about your soul, right? Your spirit.
Hmm.
Anxiety. If you were to say, like, describe yourself in 10 different, describe your spirit or your soul in 10 different ways, you would not put
No,
anxiety in there, would
it
you?
wouldn't even enter the
No,
radar of consideration.
exactly. So it really isn't who you are. And so it's important to regain your control and your power back to sort of start to minimize anxiety and these labels of I have generalized anxieties or I
Yes.
have anxiety. Okay. Well, that's only helpful to a certain degree. Now you can become aware, but the more emphasis you put on it, the worse it's going to get,
Right.
honestly.
And it's not denying it.
No, no, no.
I acknowledge at times anxiety is present and even impactful, but it's not always with me. It doesn't live inside my body with me. I don't carry it with me everywhere I go.
So, you know what's really interesting is this concept that you and Doug were talking about earlier that you shared with me about language
Yes.
and how in the English language we say things like, I am hungry, I am anxious.
I'm so anxious. Yeah.
In other languages, for example, Spanish, if you were to translate, yo tengo sed, it means I have thirst, or yo tengo hambre, I
I
have
have
hunger.
hunger. Right.
It's not I am these things. So that
Mhm.
is so interesting. So pay attention to your inner dialogue and your inner language and start to play with this a little bit when you catch yourself saying, I'm anxious.
Mhm, and it's gonna take practice, but I really think it could be a powerful tool to consciously
Huge.
utilize language in a way that meets your goals for dealing with worry and anxiety and fears and unknowns.
Hmm.
If you choose language around those being temporary, being occasionally present, but not being values or character traits.
It's saying to yourself, I am experiencing anxiety right now. I'm experiencing worry right now because of the uncertainty. I am feeling worry right now because I don't know what to expect, because I can't control this.
I like how the right now implies that you know in a very short time you won't be. You're qualifying it with at this particular moment when I'm saying these words,
I'm feeling this way.
but I'm saying it because I realize in a short time, this will no longer be descriptive of my state of being.
I love that.
Just like with all feelings, they come, they go. In particular, with the Spanish language, the I have, it almost makes it a possession, a thing. And
Mhm.
all possessions come and go. You don't hold
They're
on to
temporary. Yeah.
things for, yeah, very temporary. So the possession of uncomfortable feelings is a very temporary thing.
Right.
You're just acknowledging a reality in the
I
moment.
love this. It's like Goldilocks. It's right in the middle. It's not going to the side of the scale where it's denial and we're not talking about our feelings and we're pushing them away and we're trying to fight through and it's not on the other side of the spectrum where it's just consuming you. I'm so anxious. I have anxiety. All these things. It's right in the middle.
Yeah, I may as well quit and just deal
This is
because
who I
it's
am.
like this.
Newsflash,
Yeah,
this is not who you are.
no.
This is a experience and a feeling. And it's going to go away. And we've talked about this before. It's very healthy to be able to sit in your emotions and feelings. And this is a perfect way to do that, to acknowledge that it's temporary and to acknowledge that it's there and then to be able to let go and move on. So that's our other tool that we love when it comes to worry is this idea of
Yeah.
letting go. And I think a good example was the overpacking and the over planning that I was experiencing. A good way to sort of practice letting go is a way to build more trust and more sort of flow. And so my tool for trying to get to the point of letting go and experiencing flow is I'm going to instead intention set for the trip and flow from there. And so that way I have sort of a grounding tool and a basis for my day to day, like with my intention and just go from there.
I'm loving this little trend you and I have going with reclaiming intention setting to being a pervasive life tool.
Yeah.
The same way we help our clients set themselves up for success in a coaching session by setting an intention at the very beginning of the session. What do you hope to get out of this? What would make for a successful session today? We've been trying to utilize that for life, setting intentions.
It really does help mitigate worry
Mhm.
because if I'm just able to pack the clothes, sort of try and let go. And let's say my intention for the trip, I haven't put thought into it yet because I wanted to spend some time with my journal and just get it off on paper. That's a really other great tool that is so helpful. Get the worries out, do a brain dump,
Mm-hmm.
write it all out. It doesn't matter if it's chicken scratch, it doesn't even need to make sense. It's going to help. But let's say my intention setting or my intention for the trip is I want to really experience nature and take lessons from nature while I'm out in California. Okay, cool. Then just be outside and go from there.
Then does it matter which of the three dresses you've been sending photos and polling friends on which would be the best to bring? Does it really matter for that intention?
No.
No. You could be wearing any one of the three.
I could think about a few different intentions that I could set. My intention is to be present in the space that I'm in, looking at the palm trees, feeling the sand in my toes, or my intention is to breathe more. But none of it has to do with appearance.
Right. So when you find yourself perseverating on a small, detailed decision and it's just taking a long time, and there's a lot of people getting involved and a lot of back and forth and a lot of energy around that decision, you can say, hold on, time out. What's my intention in this trip I'm packing for? Okay, that has absolutely no relevance to what I'm wearing. Therefore, I'm calling myself out.
Yeah, this is why we're talking about this is such a good example of like the need for control.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is your first signal right there that you are experiencing too much worry. And so, what can you do to get back into your own body, back into your own mind, and back to reality in this present moment instead of up in the clouds in your brain? Because that's where worry lives, right? It's just in our head, circling and circling.
It builds when you give it too much time,
Absolutely.
when you let it take over and run away with things that really don't matter. And that's where having tools to recognize and have the awareness yourself so that you can call yourself out on things that just don't matter. Cut yourself off there.
And pick your favorite tool as you observe. I love my dad's tool of, you know what, I want action. That's going to help me. I think for me, I called Kit and I said, Kit, you know what? I can tell I'm perseverating. I can tell I'm worrying too much. I need to make a decision. I can just feel it in my bones in order to move on and feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe that's your tool too. Maybe you find, you know what? Once I make a decision, it makes me feel better. Just start to experiment and
Yeah.
get sort of clear on what helps you mitigate that worry.
I love taking action because by taking an action, you're also breaking yourself out of the little cycle you're in because you have to commit to step further away from whatever it is you're the little whirlwind. If everybody could see the little
She's
finger of
twirling
whirlwind
her finger.
storm, yeah, like little tornado storm that you're in, if you can step outside of that, everything instantly gets
Mm.
calmer, gets quieter. Even if it's having a time out to go for a walk and you have to come back to the decision, at least you'll gain some clarity and peacefulness in your mind by taking that action that doesn't directly solve the issue at hand, but at least gives you the time and space to be able
Yeah,
to
take a
do it.
break, right. Get back into your body, into the present moment, because worrying has this very sort of airy energy about it, which is the opposite of grounded energy, right? Rooting and your feet in the ground and the earth and feeling confident and grounded is just the opposite of worry and
Yeah.
airiness, floating and you can picture that, right? And you felt that, I'm sure, before. I love that tip. Going outside,
Yeah.
take a
Take
break,
yourself
step
away,
away.
physically away from where you're not making progress, where you're not advancing. And sometimes, you get stubborn and you sink and you're like, oh, I just need this to be done. But it's not going to be
Yeah.
done. You're not going anywhere good with it. Just step away.
Trying to make everything perfect also is a sneaky sign of worry because it's again in that control category. So when you notice yourself, if you're experiencing that and you're observing that you're behaving that way, just know that that is you trying to control. And so then we have to implement our tools of letting go and trying to flow a little bit more.
I had a work colleague many years ago, and sad to say, many years ago, I was still doing or was already, I guess, doing the perfectionist things where she and I would finish not a big project, just a small project, a document, something that was ready to be turned in. And then I'd start my tweaking. And it was an anxiety thing. It was I think this could be better. I think, maybe if we just did this and this, or maybe we could make it look prettier or easy to understand, or, just any little thing. But basically, it wasn't making the work we had done any better or more presentable. It was just using up a whole lot of time. But it was sort of my system for dealing with, I don't think it's perfect yet, and then all the what ifs. What if it's not perceived as good enough? No, so forth and so on. So she got to know me well enough that she knew what I was doing, and she knew I wouldn't be okay if she just wrenched it from my fingers and was like, it's done. So she very smartly would say, Kit, you have 5 minutes to make
Oh, I
changes. At the
love
end of
that, that
5
timer
minutes, we're
tool that we
going to
discussed
call it done.
earlier. Yes.
It was. And I'd say, okay, like my first instinct would be to lobby for more time, or that's not enough. And then I'd realize I was on the clock and my 5 minutes were ticking in her mind, and I better get going. And I could do whatever it was I thought I needed to do to make it more perfect. And I knew she was serious. At 5 minutes, we were done. And it was the best thing anyone could have ever done for me. And I try to do that to myself. But let me tell you, it was so effective.
Oh, I love that. And that's why we call ourselves the recovering imperfectionists, because we both had a lot of experience with perfectionism and, like we said, with worry, and the two go hand in hand. And so starting this podcast was a big challenge for us, and actually a big milestone for the two of us as recovering perfectionists. And so we like to call ourselves imperfectionists.
Yeah.
Because we just had to put it out at first. You have to start somewhere. And so I think that's where
we just had to jump.
You start to build more self-trust and self-confidence in these decisions.
When those things work out, you look back and you can say, like, ha ha ha, look at how worried we were, or look at how many months we spent recording fake podcasts with no intention of ever airing them. And we never did. Someday, those archives, who knows? But we would record fake podcasts. And then one day we thought, we're not ready. We knew in our minds we were not ready. But we're like, you know what? We just got to post one. And it was really so scary. But look, and then you look back and we laugh about it now. We're like, haha, look at how long we did that. And it really does build your confidence, your track record with yourself.
There's our last tool, is just try to make little decisions for yourself, and maybe use some affirmations that it doesn't need to be perfect. Good enough is good enough.
Think back to real world times where you thought you weren't ready, you acted anyway, and it worked out just great.
I love that. So we hope you enjoyed today's episode and learned a little bit more on how to stop worrying, how to stop those negative thought cycles in your head, to build more self-confidence and to be happier and healthier.
Until next week, peace, love, and light.
Peace, love, and light.
The Soulful of Wellness hosts are certified health and wellness coaches. This podcast is intended to inform and entertain listeners on their wellness journey. This podcast is meant to enhance, not replace, listeners' care from doctors, therapists, or other medical providers.